office certainly are not overpaid. They're worth more than we're able to pay them, but they do what they do for our missionaries as a ministry, and we're able to support them or to pay them so that they continue doing what they're doing because of churches and individuals that we call planting partners. These are churches and individuals who support the CBM General Fund on a regular basis. And they are vitally important to the work that we do. We're able to continue serving our missionaries. And our missionaries are able to continue on the field in their places of ministry because of those who are planting partners. We need additional planting partners. We need more churches and individuals who would support the general fund on a regular basis. And so if you would pray with us that God would raise up additional planting partners, or if you would pray perhaps about your own involvement with us as planting partners, we would appreciate that. We're very thankful for the way that God leads, even regarding our office staff and the ministry that they are able to continue. Chris and Jeannie Brown are the most recent additions to our office staff. They are folks who have 25 years of missionary ministry experience. They were missionaries on the field during the early years of their ministry, their full-time ministry, and then moved into support roles within the office of a mission agency. Chris's background is in business administration and finance, accounting. He was the manager of a branch bank, was one of the occupations that he had prior to going into the ministry, and that's something that God has used. God recently brought them to our attention. They were looking for their next place of ministry, and so they came with CBM, and we are very delighted to have them. They live in northern Indiana and will be able to continue living there, able to work remotely, as well as they're able to come up to the office on an as-needed basis. They will be in the office tomorrow and Tuesday. It's about 2.25-hour trip for them to come from home up to the CBM office, and they have several friends in the area that they're able to stay with when they come up. But we're very, very glad for Chris and Jeannie Brown and the way that God has met a very definite need that CBM had through them. Chris is our new business manager, and Jeannie is an office assistant, and we're just very glad for the role that they're playing. Not only the work that they do, but they fit in very well with our mission family, get along well with the rest of the office staff and with our missionaries, and they view what they do as a ministry. Their tagline is serving Jesus by serving others, and they certainly are doing both. We'd also ask that you pray with us as we search for the next executive director for CBM. The word director I see is missing from that slide, but we are beginning a search for the next CBM executive director. Our three-man leadership team that we've had over the last 3 years was not intended to be a permanent thing. It's what was necessary and what God had raised up at that time. And so we are currently searching for the next executive director for CBM, and you might add that as a prayer request for us as well. So I am going to I'll come back to talk about this slide in a minute, but I want to give opportunity for questions that you might have about church planting, about church revitalization, about our building ministry, anything that I have mentioned or anything that I've failed to mention this morning. Any questions that you have? How many of you had heard of Hiawatha Baptist Missions before? Okay, several have. Yeah. Our name was changed in 1982, so that's been 43 years ago, but there are still, sorry if I'm giving your age away, but um, there are still those that knew us as Hiawatha Baptist Missions. Yes, sir. How long does it take to construct a building for a church that needs one? Of course, that varies from place to place depending on the size of the building that's needed. When we were building in Sioux City, Iowa, that was about a 5,200 square foot building, slab on grade, so there wasn't a basement. Uh, and that building was constructed in just over 6 months. Now that's on the short side, okay? They typically take longer than that. They typically have been taking a minimum of a year or more to construct a building. And that depends to a large, in large part, to the availability of volunteer help as well. When we were building in Sioux City, we had teams of volunteers that came from different churches, some from Michigan, some of course from Iowa, some from Minnesota, Wisconsin. We had groups of people that came and spent a week on the project with us, and one of those teams, actually we had two teams there the same week. We had a team of young people from Wisconsin and a team of mainly adults from Michigan there at the same week, and it was remarkable how much work got done and how far that project advanced during that time. Out in northwest Montana, that's a little farther away and not as easy for volunteer teams to reach, so they haven't had as many volunteer teams, and so that also impacts the length of time that it takes to build. But somewhere between 6 months to a year and a half. Yes, sir. Yes. Mhm. Well, it begins with the missionary, the church planter, when they apply with CBM. We have a lengthy doctrinal questionnaire that they fill out during the application process. And then, in addition to that, there's an oral doctrinal exam, maybe not quite as long as Melissa's doctoral defense, but sometimes almost as long. So we know the doctrine of the church planter thoroughly when they apply with us. And then there's the CBM statement of faith that we as missionaries sign each year. So we have a good finger on the doctrinal pulse of the missionary, and we know what kind of church they're going to be planting as that church plant is organized. At some point, then they develop a doctrinal statement of their own, and we receive that. In my experience, we've not had any difficulties with our CBM church plants. To go a little bit further with your question, and maybe you weren't thinking of this as well, our builders will build not only for CBM mission churches, but they will sometimes build for other churches as well. We have an order of priority, and so a CBM mission church, whether it's a church plant building, a new building of their own, or a revitalization work that maybe has some addition work to be done or whatever, a CBM mission church has first priority. If there isn't a CBM mission church that needs the missionary builders, then our builders will build for others. They'll build buildings for missionaries serving with other mission agencies. Our missionaries have done that several times for church planters with Baptist Mid-Missions, with Baptist church planters, and sometimes they have built for independent church plants, where someone went out, not with a mission agency, but they went out to plant a church, and we've come alongside them. If it's not a CBM mission church that's asking for the help of the missionary builders, then we require the church that's requesting help to submit their documents, their constitution, their statement of faith, and we review that thoroughly to make sure there's doctrinal agreement. Yes, ma'am. Yes, I am. I am a member of First Baptist Church in Howard City, and I know among our church family there is discussion about that. So I remember having a conversation with our pastor, Pastor Joshua Putnam. This has been a number of years ago. We were just talking about church planting in general, and I was just sharing with him that, you know, our mission office is located halfway between Rockford and Cedar Springs, 14 Mile and Northland Drive. And I was just making the comment to him that this general area, West Michigan and just, you know, in this area is, I probably stated it this way, it's the last place that I would be trying to plant a church because of the number of churches in this, it seems to me, in this area. And I said, with one possible exception, I said, what's in Big Rapids? And he said, well, it's interesting that you would ask that. He said, because. And so we've had kind of a conversation there. So yes, there has been interest expressed, nothing that has taken any kind of a definite plan yet, but yes, I am aware of that. I see Pastor nodding. I think you and Pastor Joshua have probably had conversations as well. So if you're praying about that, and I hope you are, we are praying with you as well, just to see what the Lord might raise up. Are we being recorded here? Is this okay? Then I probably won't say more than that at this point. But nothing that's a deep, dark secret. It's just maybe something that needs to be kept a little closer to the vest. Yes, ma'am. Yes. I believe there are 19 churches that you could attend today. If you went up to the Upper Peninsula, there are 19 churches across the width of the UP that are still in existence and still carrying on gospel ministry there. That doesn't represent all of the places that those early Hiawatha missionaries served. Many of them had works going in more than one place. They're planting a church. You know, the man who was planting First Baptist Church of Newberry, he had a church plant there, but he had several works going in some of the outlying areas. Not all of them resulted in a church being established, but they certainly had vital ministries going on while they still existed. Good questions. I want to take the last few minutes here just to kind of conclude our thoughts here, and if you have other questions, please, between services or after the service this morning, be glad to do my best to answer them. but you've asked very good questions this morning, so thank you for that. There are 4 churches represented in this picture. 3 of them I've talked about this morning: Berean Baptist Church in Watertown, Connecticut, Good News Baptist Church in Sioux City, Iowa, Valley Baptist Church in Eureka, Montana, and then, of course, I trust you recognize the 4th church represented in the pictures there. That's your church. Every one of these churches has a story about how they were started. My understanding is that First Baptist Church of Reed City, or what is today Reed City, was organized in 1872, correct? Is that 1872? So I don't know just how that came about, but you have a story, and I commend you for putting your story on your website. I like that. I love to hear the stories, the accounts of how God has brought local churches into existence. And we think about what God has done through these local churches. Acts chapter 11, verses 19 through 26 is another story about how God brought a church into existence. It's the account of how God brought the church in Antioch into existence. When that text opens in verse 19, there isn't a church in Antioch. But when we get to verse 26, we read about the church in Antioch. So in between those verses, it's the account of how God brought that church into existence. There were some things that God used to begin that work there. One of the things that was a part of that we read about in verse 22. Some things happening in verses 19 through 21, but verse 22 says, "Then tidings of these things came unto the ears of the church which was in Jerusalem, and they sent forth Barnabas, that he should go as far as Antioch." And from that verse on, then, Barnabas kind of becomes the central figure in this text. I look at Barnabas as the guy who basically he was the church planter in Antioch. Now, there were others who were there before him sharing the gospel, and God was blessing their testimony of Christ, and people were turning to the Lord and being saved. And then Barnabas was sent there, but I believe verse 22 provides a key in our understanding of church planting. Then tidings of these things came unto the ears of the church, which was in Jerusalem. That was a local church, the church in Jerusalem. That church heard God's doing something in Antioch. There's a need there. There's an opportunity there. It seems God's doing something in Antioch. And that church responded by sending out one of their own. Barnabas was a member of the church in Jerusalem. Barnabas was a key member in the church in Jerusalem. If you think about the kind of church member you don't want to lose, Barnabas would be that kind of church member. But the church in Jerusalem sent him out to go to Antioch. What we learn from this verse, and probably several things, but one of the key things we learn from this verse, I believe, is that the responsibility for planting churches lies with local churches. It lies with local churches. It's your responsibility as a church to be planting churches. It's the responsibility of First Baptist Church of Howard City to be planting churches. It's the responsibility of the church that sent me out as a missionary, and the churches that continue to support me. It's their responsibility. When we finished the work in Sioux City, we showed not the picture that's in the lower left-hand corner. That one is the more recent one, but a picture similar taken in 2009. We went back to our supporting churches. We showed them that picture, and we said, "This is the fruit of your ministry. because you prayed, because you gave, because you were involved, God brought this church into existence. And so, as a ministry, Continental Baptist Missions can help local churches, and we do help local churches carry out that responsibility. We are a way for churches to network together in sending out missionaries to plant churches. And so, not only in our giving, but in our sending as well, we are responsible as local churches to be planting churches. So I am very thankful for those who started First Baptist Church of Reed City, and for those who have continued this ministry, and for you who today continue this ministry. But as we do that, may God give us that vision of planting other churches. Father, thank you for the moments we've had during this time, and we give thanks and praise to you and ask for your continued blessing as we worship you today in Jesus' name.